Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us again in this Goal Sourcing monthly webinar. Just a bit of background. Goal Sourcing is a social media website for procurement leaders and supply chain professionals. We provide them with relevant resources, articles, news, analysis, reports, tools for them to succeed at work. In this morning's webinar, what we're going to share with you today is about sustainable sourcing, which is something quite new. And specifically, we're going to share with you on how to use sustainable sourcing as a market differentiation strategy for your products. Just to give a bit of introduction and a background, sustainable sourcing is actually touted as the future of procurement and supply chain management. So what is that exactly sustainable sourcing? A lot of people often thought that sustainable sourcing or sustainable procurement is about buying green products or helping the environment, and that's it. Well, that is quite right for the first part, but it's not just that, as we can hear from the speakers and the experts later on. But in summary, sustainable sourcing is known as procurement of products and services beyond traditional cost and supplies matrix with environmental, social, and ethical issues in mind. So this is extremely important and extremely valuable for certain industries that are dealing with natural resources. For example, like with almost 9 billion people in the world, and the demand for natural resources is already around like 30% higher than the earth can regenerate. And this is quite serious. And this could also mean supply risk to industries such as oil and gas, food and beverages, agriculture, mining, and other related industries. So what we're going to do in the next 1 hour, we're going to talk about building a sustainable supply chain that will become your company's competitive advantage, and how does it use it to stimulate innovation and increase productivity as well. So without further ado, what I'm going to do here before I start the presentation, a bit of ground rules and checklist. For all our audience, please mute your phone if you are calling from the phone. Just click on your mute icon on your phone so that you can still listen in the background without interfering our speakers. For those audience that call by phone or even internet, calling by internet, you can just click on the phone icon on your top left corner. Just click on the phone icon. After that, just click on the microphone icon. You'll see a slash or a cross on your microphone that denotes that it's already muted. So that you can enjoy our presentation from the speakers from the background for the whole session. Once we are done with the presentation, in the last 20 minutes for our session, we have a Q&A where you can unmute your microphone or unmute your phone where you can ask questions to the speakers. So in the next 1 hour, we're going to talk about sustainable sourcing. What we have here today is two very interesting speakers for today. Mr. C.M. Venkateswaran, or in short, I just call him Venkat. He is actually the CEO for Aker Powergas Subsea. And then we also have Mr. Michael Betts. He is actually the Vice President of Business Development from Thinkstep, Germany. Both of these speakers are very experienced practitioners in today's topic on sustainable sourcing. So for our first speakers, I will do a brief introduction. Venkat will be sharing with you shortly on how his company is reinventing the oil and gas industry for sustainability. The oil and gas industry, as we already know, right, has been always perceived as the biggest offender in terms of offender to the environmental and to the mother nature as well. So Aker Powergas Subsea has been promoting the use of subsea technology that will significantly reduce the carbon footprint in the oil construction and production projects. So Venkat, I think a lot of people today are very keen to learn about how you're leading the company and leading the industry in the transformation process. So, are you ready to tell us more about that?
Thank you all for this audience and for listening. And thanks all my colleagues who are present here. The subject of sustainability obviously has been existing in the oil and gas industry for quite some time. But I thought it's an ever-evolving subject and a subject that we need to keep updating ourselves on as the dynamics of the world keep changing. The regulations, the laws, and the world that we live in keeps changing. So with this context in mind, I have tried to focus and I have tried to put a few slides on sustainability and the industry that we are in, and that's the oil and gas. And within oil and gas, we are in a segment called deep water oil and gas or subsea oil and gas. So my presentation would basically revolve more around the deep water oil and gas and how we are trying to incorporate sustainability into every aspect of our execution for our projects. So with this in mind, let me take you quickly through some of the thoughts that I have put up in these slides. Yeah. So, one of the first things I would like to begin with is, this year is a little special for our company, Aker Solutions, because we complete 175 years of our existence, sustained existence in this world. So when you live for 175 years, obviously sustainability has to be a part of the company's strategy. So this year, one of the things that we have done is we have devised a new vision for the company, which is a leader in forging a sustainable future for our industry and the world it serves. And let me tell you that the word sustainable future has been an intentional addition in this vision statement, which did not exist in the earlier one, although the intention was there, but it's made more explicit and more specific in this new vision of ours. So it's very important for each one of us in this company at least to understand that we have a role to play in leaving behind a sustainable world. And that's the subject of the discussion, Thomas and Richard, that you have laid down. Very relevant subject, and it's good that we are all here to share our thoughts on the subject. So with this in mind, let me go to the background. The oil and gas industry, this is where the oil and gas industry has been traditionally. It's almost like building cities on water. Each of these structures that you see on the water are so intricately designed, and the integrity that is expected out of these products is so high from a performance point of view, from an environmental point of view, and from an operational point of view. So these are the kind of installations within schedule and cost that are expected out of the oil and gas industry, and these are the kind of monuments that have been built which have to last for 20 years and 25 years. Obviously, sustainability goes behind the design, behind the execution, and behind the operations of these structures. So if you look at the oil and gas industry, I think the awareness of sustainability has always existed. But what has happened is that in the last 5 to 6 years, the kind of growth that this industry has seen, I think a lot of people have been trying to execute the projects, meet the targets, meet the challenging schedules. So improvements, innovations has happened. It's fair to say that it has happened. But look at the way things have moved in the last 1 year. Did anyone imagine the rate of fall, the rate at which the oil and gas industry fell by almost, from 140 to close to $30? Probably no. The markets fell so steeply and everybody was caught unaware. So, where are we today in the industry? The industry is in a state of response. So, the industry has to respond to the market. So, you will find some very critical, crucial initiatives which are being embarked upon by the industry. I think probably the biggest ever focus on cost effectiveness, utilizing materials, utilizing resources in an optimal manner. The biggest ever focus on efficient supply chain management. The biggest ever focus on standardization, simplification, and innovation. Biggest ever focus on improvement programs. And above all, biggest ever focus on sustaining the above on an ongoing basis. So it's just not that when the markets come back to normal, you go back to your old habits. Probably that will not happen. So the kind of initiatives, the kind of focus that the industry is focusing on today is to sustain these improvement programs, sustain these efficient programs for time to come. And sustainability is at the root of all these programs. And I will take you through some of the examples within our own organization. So as I showed in the earlier slide from the shallow water oil and gas projects, the oil and gas has moved more and more towards the deep water, obviously, because that's the place where the oil and gas is being found, and that's the place where the future oil and gas will be, deeper, farther, and harsher. Now, when you deal with this kind of installation, this is the kind of sizes you talk about. It's obviously so critical to ensure that the integrity of these products that are put on the bed of the water, the performance levels, and how they remain in an harmony with the world around it, with the waters, with the fauna, and with the environment. So it's so important to ensure that these products work in absolute harmony without impacting the environment. And then you have some of the drivers, as I said, for the field water is, as I said, deeper, farther, and harsher. That's where the oil and gas is going to be found. So it's obvious that the technologies that are required to meet these expectations of the client would be more and more towards getting more for less. How do you get the maximum out of the marginal fields? How do you come out with solutions to process the last drop of oil and the last meter cube of gas from the reservoirs? And how to develop the cost to standardization and reuse solutions. So these are the key, the technologies, or the technology will be driven by these bases for solving the problems of tomorrow and for solving these requirements of the customers of tomorrow. Now, this is the vision that the people are having. So from building cities on water, the focus is to build factories on the seabed. So if you have to move from a status where you build cities on water to building factories on the seabed, it calls for a total different thinking and a total different mindset. All the more where, again, I repeat, sustainability has to be at the root of all these solutions and the technologies that determine the equations of the subsea industry. So this is an example of a subsea factory that is envisaged by one of our customers, and the industry is working towards these kind of initiatives. So this was basically to take you, what have we done towards taking some baby steps towards achieving this sustainable basis and sustainable operation for meeting the challenges of tomorrow. So this was a small drawing that was prepared by one of the engineers in Aker Solutions in 1983, trying to visualize a deep water compression system. Because typically in an oil and gas plant, the compression system sits on the top or sits on the onshore, which means you spend energy all the way to bring the gas or the oil to the shore or to the platform and then compress it. So the logic was, why do you waste energy in bringing up the oil and the gas? Why don't you put the compressor near the source? So this was just a concept about 33 years ago from one of the engineers. And I'm happy to say that today this is a reality. So this concept was converted into a pilot and subsequently delivered as a project for one of the clients for us this year in 2015, which was for Statoil, the Åsgard project. So what does it talk about is basically when you put up the entire compression system on the base, not only you're reducing the footprint economically, environmentally, but you're also reducing the carbon dioxide emissions. It's much safer because it's an unmanned operation, and the whole thing is packaged as a module. So you don't have, instead of the conventional stick build, you have an entire modular construction which economizes the use of steel, which simplifies the design and makes it more compact. So as a result of which you land up with a smaller footprint and a much more environmentally safe construction. So with these were the kind of equipments that was supplied for the Åsgard project as a part of the first world subsea compression project that we executed. It was in 2015. So some details of this: it was the world's first subsea compression project, and we had the first oil flowing on 15th September. It's an absolute energy efficient by putting the compressor near the source, safe and proven through pilot trials, and as I said, modular construction, reducing the footprint, economizing the use of steel. Modules were fabricated at yards with a waterfront, minimizing inland transportation, which is also a small step towards sustainable logistics. and a classic example of collaborative working between the operator, the contractor and suppliers. And as Thomas rightly said in the beginning, sustainability is not just about greening the environment but it's also together as partners, as collaborating. How do we collaborate with each other in the system to drive down the cost, to improve the efficiency and to improve the overall operation? So this was again a small step in that direction for collaborative working between the various stakeholders. And one of the things that we did consciously is to show the suppliers the larger picture and tell them what is that we are trying to build rather than remaining at a transactional level. And that I think has got that resulted in a very good cooperation and very good support from the manufacturers. We had almost about 22 technical qualification programs as a part of this project. And all these qualification programs went through very successfully in a very well collaborative manner. So if such technologies have to be sustainable, my comment is that every aspect of its execution, from engineering to supply chain to manufacturing to operations and maintenance and to the entire subsea life cycle or the life cycle management, has to have a sustainability based approach. So coming back to, with this in the background, let me give you a focus on supply chain and sustainability, which is basically the core of the topic today. So when you talk about a project where 55 to 60% of the cost of a project is governed by supply chain, obviously the importance of supply chain need not be overemphasized. But coming back, an imperative definition of supply chain, I would like to read what is being put here, and I think it's very relevant that it is to align the supply chain to create value for all stakeholders by improving the flow of goods, services and knowledge. And this is something very important. I like the word improving not only improving the value, but also the knowledge. And the knowledge has got to do with people. So when we talk about the triple bottom line in sustainability, where we talk about we talk about the planet, we talk about the profit, and we talk about the people. So it's all about people. How do we enhance the knowledge of the people? And that it's very relevantly, it sits within the definition of sustainable supply chain. So it also takes care of the future generations, which is the planet. So I think it's well defined here and takes care of all the three key stakeholders in the sustainability. So and this is of course to show you where supply chain plays a role. It's not just in the transactional activities that comes in the far end or at the further end of the whole process, but a lot has to be done in the upfront, which is on the strategic side of supply chain, where the needs are defined, where the concepts are laid out. I think supply chain has got a lot to do in the upfront as well, so that it is really effective, and then the downstream becomes an operational, it becomes a smooth operational activity as you move down the lane. So this is basically just to give you an overview of what a sustainable supply chain should look like. So as far as we are concerned, as far as Aker Solutions is concerned, let me come back to you because Thomas has requested that some of the initiatives that we as a company are trying to take in this process of sustainability and supply chain. Let me show it. As we said, we are still moving on the path. We have a way to go, but we have certainly taken some baby steps in this direction. Now, HSE, health, safety and environment, is not just a requirement for us and our suppliers and our supply chain, but it's a core value. So we have this at the core, from design to procurement to manufacturing to logistics and in our day-to-day lives. And obviously, it's imperative that all our suppliers align themselves with this core value. And some of the initiatives that we have taken in the last few months, or rather last 1 year, is basically for both the direct as well as the indirect sourcing. We have a supplier qualification information system which is mandatory, and where we talk about all these requirements of ours, which will come in the subsequent slides. So we have a motto that no SQIS, no purchase order, no payment policy. And when we work with suppliers as partners to drive improvements with respect to documentation, training, value stream mapping of the whole points, etc. So we minimize or we optimize at every stage, so that the more optimum the resources are, the more we are taking steps towards sustainability. So sustainability is at the core of each of these activities that we try to do with when we do the detailed analysis and the value stream mapping at every stage. So what we say is that amongst we have various continual improvement initiatives, as you know, that exist. Some go for Six Sigma, some go for Kaizens, but we as a company have focused on the lean methodology. And when we say lean is all about reducing waste, simplifying, standardizing, and industrializing. So all the improvement initiatives that is being driven in Aker Solutions today is based on the lean approach. And that is the way at least we would like to move forward in the times to come, and then we will see the next level of how we need to go. So this is an organization-wide improvement program which we call as the journey, and where the focus is all to reduce waste, to simplify, standardize, and industrialize. And all this is basically to realize the vision of the company to build a sustainable future. So it all starts with engineering. And in engineering, there is a typical tendency to keep creating materials. The more you create new materials, the more the non-standardization. The more the non-standardization, the more the challenges, the usage of materials, more the waste, and then you are not moving towards sustainability. So it all starts with engineering, with the basis is how to reuse existing material, how to standardize, and how to map the materials with what is available in the market. Simple thing, but very critical, very important, and the oil and gas really needs to look at these aspects because this has to become a default way of working. So what we have done is we have also developed some tools to integrate with SAP to achieve this. And there are some very clear KPIs, not to say the least, to propose for creating raw material. And we have proposed that there should be a levy for every new material that is getting created. Hopefully that will deter some of the unnecessary creation of material that happens today. So these are some small initiatives in engineering that we are working towards sustainability and towards improvement. So from material creation to material reuse, that's the mantra. Supplier collaboration, developing new products. As I said, when you execute a subsea compression type of a project which is something for the first time, obviously there are a lot of new developments that happen, and that calls for a lot of supplier collaboration. Supply chain is at the heart of all these collaborations and all these initiatives. For example, the compressor. The compressor was a totally new concept, a new design, and it could not have been built without an absolute transparent and an honest collaboration with the supplier, which was MA in Germany. So, but we have not stopped it at that. We are on the next phase of developing the next generation of the compressor to make it more lean, to make it more cost effective, and to reduce the footprint again. So that's an ongoing process. So developing the electrical actuator, for example, again, trying to get away from the hydraulics and moving more towards electric, which is more clean, more neat, and it's more reliable. And for the OSGARD, as I said, there were some 22 qualification programs which was done in close collaboration with the supplier. So supply chain management was a very strategic process which was envisaged in the upfront of the project itself to take us through this entire execution. So this is just, I won't go through the whole thing, but this is the improvement plan for the next phase of OSGARD. And I wanted to intentionally show you that this improvement plan was released just last month to show how do we further reduce the footprint. And the basis of this improvement plan is system reduction consequence. We are trying to reduce the number of components from 526 to 253. And the total system weight reduction from 5,100 tons to 2,500. And above all, so in this process, what is happening is that the system availability slightly reduces, but it doesn't. That doesn't seem to be a big problem. But the cost gets reduced by 50%. So on the whole, if you look at it, it's all how do we deliver more for less, and how do we make the system more efficient by using lesser material? Again, a step towards sustainability. So what we did was, when we put up this compression project, we said that it was like a Swiss watch, but we need to reduce the price of the Swiss watch. So that's what we are doing by working with the compressor vendor to reduce the size by 50% without reducing the core efficiency. So it's delivering more for less is a key step towards sustainability. Some of the contribution to sustainability in the supply chain. I think if as I mentioned to you, we have the supplier qualification system, information system, where we have some of these values and some of these requirements which we live by. We have a business integrity and compliance philosophy where these requirements are absolutely mandatory for every employee, and we pass this philosophy and values to our suppliers. For example, compliance with the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact and UN Declaration of Human Rights and local laws. So important because people are at the core of sustainability. Similarly, there are a whole lot of other initiatives like selection of business partners, minimum age of labor, forced labor in line with international labor standards. So these are again very important aspects of our execution. These are very important aspects of our supply chain, and it is expected that the suppliers and the stakeholders comply with these values and these philosophies of Aker Solutions. And some other subjects that we deal with when we deal with the suppliers apart from the routine financial legal is HSE and corporate social responsibility, which is again an important part for us to leave behind a better and a sustainable world, is how do we contribute to the society? How do we behave as responsible citizens? So these are important aspects of our supply chain philosophy and our relationship with our suppliers, and we help them to understand and implement these in their own organizations. So, as I said, it's people, profit, and planet, which is the triple bottom line when we talk about supply chain. So, how do we move towards? So, some of the success factors that we could think of in moving towards a sustainable supply chain sourcing strategy. I think it begins with the leadership. I think no initiative can happen without the commitment of the leadership. So, there has to be a proper vision and a policy for the leadership to drive this in their own respective organizations and help to drive these initiatives in their stakeholders as well, be it suppliers, be it contractors. So that's extremely the first step, in my opinion, to start with this. And for that, even if there needs to be some KPIs for the board of directors and for the management, so be it. I think that could be a way forward. So corporate accountability, I think, is extremely important to drive environmental performance and improvements. Obviously, additional innovation will be the key to driving a sustainable future. So innovation has to be a way of life to drive sustainable services and sustainable products. So we need to, but probably I think we have a role to play in developing and designing some standards. That's why probably organizations like Michael's, who are trying to build a framework, trying to build some metrics of how to measure sustainability, how to capture data, how to analyze data. Probably this is a subject that needs to be further deliberated upon by organizations like Michael's and the industries, and then so that we develop clear standards for the industry.
Venkat, sorry, just to let you know, you still have another 5 minutes. This is a time check.
Yes, I should be through in about 5 minutes. Yes, so moving more and more towards standardized supply and encouraging local content. I think this is again an important part, which means hiring personnel from the local area. It's again very important part of sustainable supply chain. So these are some initiatives which organizations could work on. And I think to put it as a formula, I believe that continuous improvement plus sustainable sourcing could be a recipe for sustainable business. Now, as I mentioned to you in a couple of slides, these are the last couple of slides of mine before I end, is the improvement program that we are talking about in the company, which is called as the Journey. It has 6 initiatives and 3 enablers. And if you see, the first initiative towards this improvement, towards the journey, is supply chain excellence. So the importance of supply chain excellence need not be overemphasized, and the importance of having a sustainable supply chain need not be overemphasized. And again, it's important to understand that the enablers for this improvement plan is about culture, leadership, building the right metrics through performance management, and obviously tendering is to get the data back and full system. But culture and leadership and performance is so important to drive this improvement program, which also includes supply chain excellence. So to conclude, I think to repeat what Michael said, that this is the challenge that we see today in the world. We see global warming, we see adaptability, and if we have to build a better future, I think environmental and other sustainable initiatives are core to the business, and I think a sustainable sourcing strategy is absolutely an imperative for organizations. So with this, I end my presentations and I would be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks Venkat. Very, very, very good presentation. Those graphics are very nice, very illustrative. I need to admit that is the first time I got to understand about subsea technology used in construction of oil platform and oil facility. It was very good. So thanks a lot, Venkat. I think what I see is this can be a good inspiration to a lot of industry, not only for oil and gas industry, but what I hope is it could be an inspirational to F&B industry, agricultural, mining, and other that deal with natural resources. Like what I always say is right. I mean, if oil and gas can reinvent itself, right? Why can't other industries try to emulate themselves? For example, like the food industry. I mean, food production is getting more. We are getting more pressure on food production, clean water, and things like that. I think a lot of other industry can learn from a lot from you. So Venkat, thanks a lot for your presentation. So Michael, are you ready?
Okay, yes. Let's. I will exactly start immediately. Thanks for inviting me to this very, very nice community, Thomas. It's a pleasure, especially since I got to know some old friends here and met them. So, what I will be talking about is. I was too impatient. Shortly, very briefly introduce our company. Then just make present to you what we understand under the sustainability challenge, and then talk you through some of our solutions to address that, and hopefully address also what you introduced to Thomas is the business value of these activities. So Thinkstep is a company which was known as the International before. I think we sorted that. We are more than 200 people around the world. Have quite some offices which are marked orange here on the chart. We are also active in India, for instance, and we serve more than 40% of the global 500 companies and have overall 4,000 plus customers. What is very important for us, and I hope I will be able to bring this over, we are offering software, data and services, and especially the content, the data which we bring to the table helps a lot to understand supply chains and their risks better, and be able to address the whole value chain. But I will come to that, but that's what we base our business on is also a data foundation. And here you see the whole picture, the whole portfolio. You see the data foundation underpinning all our applications. You see the services surrounding that, and you see, and we will have a glimpse at all three dimensions. You see the product sustainability and sustainable supply chain edge, which is focusing on life cycle assessment, understanding the value chains, understanding the risks. Then we have a compliance business where we acquired recently BombCheck as a solution, and where we are selling PLM integrated product compliance solutions through Siemens or jointly with Siemens. It's a Siemens product in the end, and I will explain you how this belongs together and why this is a good approach to do this not in a siloed manner but really integrated in the overall environment, which is responsible for creating products and for also deriving data from suppliers. And last but not least, if you come from the corporate lens and you want to evaluate your suppliers, there is an offering in the SOFI, in the corporate sustainability product platform, which we are offering, which enables you to rate, grade, communicate with your suppliers, and understand the risk on a supplier basis, not that much from an individual product perspective. So next step in the journey is a little bit focusing on, we had the climate change, it's getting warmer, thunderstorms are getting heavier. The question is what you do to address climate change. The world is getting more and more crowded. Resources need to be cared for, we need to be recycled and not just dumped. And we face complex global value chains where there is now more rigor enforced to, for instance, prevent money going into civil war conflicts. And there are tools or topics, how to address that, or at least questions. Yeah. So more and more people get more and more responsible and are asking for product information, are asking for sustainable products, and this has then to go down through the supply chain, because it is not anymore enough that a company in itself is caring for sustainability. It does not end at their fence. It has to entail the whole value chain. How to address that? In Germany, we have, for instance, to attack global warming, we have a 95% carbon reduction target by 2015, and there is a big gap which nobody knows at the moment how to close that. Yeah, so the targets are very ambitious, and the whole economy is challenged to address that. And for instance, regarding the value chains, there is a conflict-free sourcing initiative, which is addressing this conflict minerals directive, that you get just these minerals from certified mines. Yeah? So this is the environment companies have to live in, and we think this does not go away. So there is a new normal in the market, a new paradigm. Companies have to be more sustainable. They have to address these topics. And if they do, there is, as you already addressed, Thomas, there is some business benefit from doing so. You can mitigate risk, you can create additional revenues, differentiate from competition, lower your supply costs, have more resilient supply chains, and you can work on your brand. So all that can and needs to be addressed by sustainability. So just make up for some time. So sustainability is getting important, and it's seen as a business driver that needs to be addressed by core business. Okay, so I was saying already before that the supply chains are getting more and more complex. They span the whole world, but also if you look at how a product is designed, manufactured, and marketed around the world, it spans many different countries. There might be design, for instance, in the middle of Europe. There's production around the world, and it should be able to be sold around the world. But there are now more and more national and regional regulations for the target markets which need to be respected in defining a product regarding the ingredients. This is what we call product compliance, and that all needs to be respected along the whole life cycle. Just to give some examples, there's in Europe the RoHS and the REACH directives, which require companies to prevent use of or at least be able to document and to communicate on the use of certain substances which are embedded in the product, and this has to go down the whole supply chain. I mentioned the conflict minerals, where money ends up in for instance, in the the People's Republic of Congo, and which relates a lot of death and severe suffering of people in this region. These elements in place, which are shown on the right side, they need to be coming from certified mines to ensure that they are not coming from civil war regions. And how to do that? This has to go throughout the whole. The information needs to be communicated throughout the whole supply chains of a product. And this is why sourcing has to care for that. It might start maybe in Asia that a client is requesting the topic, but then it needs to go down. So it might start that your clients are requesting you, but then you need to forward these questions and these reporting duties to somebody else. And here just illustrated, a company might have many suppliers, and the products are flowing nicely, they are purchased, they are paid, but suddenly these new regulations are coming down your supply chain, and now you need to act and to find out, okay, what's in my product that I'm able to give it to my client with the relevant and required documentations that it's conflict-free, at its REACH and RoHS compliant. Yeah, but if you know this just very late and you can't design and develop your products according to that new directive, there's a rule in engineering that in each step developing and manufacturing a product, if you're in production, a change is very, very expensive. Each step you can bring the changes, the necessary changes forward, will save an order of magnitude in terms of money. So if you start when your client is asking to go down your supply chain and to try to fix the problem, it will be very costly because you have very high cost of handling this change. If you can do this already in design, it's way better because you don't set up the wrong suppliers for your production. And that is why it's important to address these topics quite early in the life cycle. And this is why our compliance solution for products and for supply chain compliance is fully embedded and integrated with Siemens PLM software. So this is why there was the green Siemens logo before on the portfolio. So our solution is part of the Siemens industry software suite, and Thinkstep has the responsibility to fill the sustainability and compliance solutions in this portfolio of Siemens industry software. By that, companies can directly, early in the development of a new product, ask their suppliers, the potential suppliers, what in the supplies they want to have as early as they are onboarded and not just later. And it's fully integrated with the design. But on the other hand side, I talked about the complex supply chains before. A company might have more suppliers than one for a product, and the suppliers again have suppliers, and so on and so forth. And even when you can push out automatically emails to your suppliers, that might ease your problem if you are a purchasing officer and want to do sustainable purchasing and compliant purchasing. But on the supplier side, the mess is larger, and you might get many requirements from your manufacturers, from your clients, which all ask the same. This is where BombCheck, another offering, comes into place, a web platform for supplier data exchange, where all suppliers put the compliance data on their, or the compliance certificates on their products in a centralized database system, and the manufacturers can draw from that. And that enhances the quality, the speed and efficiency of this data collection a lot, and helps all participants in the supply chain to do that. That's a very, very nice and neat tool. We've just acquired the solution into Thinkstep last year. Before it was with another company, but it's an established system which helps to address all this supplier data exchange on conflict minerals, RoHS, REACH compliance, and so on and so forth. So that was a quick, brief overview of the product compliance. Now let's go into product sustainability quickly. As we said, there are the value chains do not only go upstream if you are a manufacturer, but they also go downstream, and you might want to have a wish to get an overview of the overall product performance over the life cycle, and to look at all the impacts, not in this case for the compliance, but for the contribution to greenhouse warming, to water consumption, to air emissions, and so on, and make a sum over that product, and prevent moving a problem just from one aspect of the life cycle to another aspect, or from one environmental aspect to another environmental aspect. And that all can become, of course, this is a very linear life cycle here. It can get very, very complex. This is why Thinkstep has a large database to help companies to look at where it's necessary. So we have all kinds of data that you need to get an overview in our database to start finding the hotspots in your supply chain immediately, and then you can start communicating with the suppliers and get immediately an overview of the whole picture of the whole product over their whole life cycle without too much work. Then the question is how to communicate that. That's just a glimpse on it. For instance, a T-shirt. There is some environmental impact of this T-shirt. If you would transfer all these impacts in the different categories to a price or to a damage, which is expressed in euros or dollars, you have a very nice tool to communicate that. And on the other hand side, which is even more important, if you have the social cost of your supply chain in a currency, you know that this might come up as a risk. And so you can decide for the lower risk supply chains if you use this tool of natural capital accounting, which we have embedded in our solution jointly with TrueCost. So there are various business benefits coming from that because you know which impacts are most material. You can assess the trade-offs. You can quantify even regional resource risks. You can really have a better product development. You can build more resilient supply chains because you have the business results or the business impact of the risk in your supply chains, and you can communicate way better and way more trustworthy if you know and can demonstrate that you are taking the responsibility for your product and for your value chain. So that leads to market differentiation and transparency. And last but not least, just 2 slides on if you look at the topic from a enterprise sustainability management perspective, that you want to just start screening and interacting with your suppliers, all suppliers or the most prominent suppliers from a monetary purchase volume perspective. There is functionality on our a solution on our corporate sustainability platform which helps to do that. Just one word on these on all these aspects in the portfolio. So we talk about platform, and platform means you can use all these systems together to have really holistic view and not have 10 different solutions in place to start working on sustainability in the different aspects. So that's just a dashboard how you could rate your suppliers which you interact with through web questionnaires. They can log into your portal and deliver the information. They can also see where they are standing, but you can do supplier benchmarking against good templates which are embedded in the solution and own and get an overview of the performance of suppliers. And it can go down not only to qualitative assessment but also to energy efficiency. And then there is another use case of Siemens. They asked 3,000 of their tier 1 suppliers or certified and audited them against with this tool against some criteria, including a focus on energy efficiency. And by that, jointly with the suppliers, they could identify energy savings and realize them of up to 17% and build more cost-competitive cost structure of their whole supply chain, and by that contribute to a resilient supply chain. So that's it in a bit a rush to make up for some time from Thinkstep. Hope some things were sticking, and that really caring for sustainability in the supply chain can not only help for greener products but also can help companies to gain business value from it. So thank you, Thomas.
Thanks a lot for the wonderful presentation. I think it's very insightful. So I think one thing that, if I may ask a quick question, I leave it to other people to ask other questions, right? I think you're talking about LCA and also the overall carbon footprint for the entire product lifecycle. I think one of the things that I often heard from our audience and also some of our customers is the data is important, but I think the collection of data is often challenging, right? For example, you are talking about manufacturing. How do you trace the carbon footprint from production up to logistics and things like that? It requires a very holistic approach to collect all this data, isn't it? Isn't it very challenging, Michael?
That's a fair let's say problem. I think we are dealing with this quite actively. I mentioned the data foundation where we are building off, and if a company wants to start with understanding their picture, they can draw 90% of the important data or 99% of the important data from our database to get a first view. And by that, you know where the hotspots are, and then you can dig deeper in maybe exchanging a supplier or working with a supplier on performance, because you know using generic data, using database-based data where it's most important. On the other side, to create your product structure, you can directly dig into BOM systems, again, bill of material system, and automate the generation of such a system. So I think by technology, you can take out 99% of the manual work, and by using a data foundation instead of collecting data from the outset, and speed this up. So that's a bit the trick of Thinkstep to really rationalize the whole process.
Oh, Michael, no worries. I'll leave it to the end. I think I want to learn more about the tricks that you're talking about. All right?
It's okay, but
Now, before I open up for the question and answer sessions, all right? So we still have about 10 minutes, unfortunately, before we finish it. So right now, for other audience, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute your microphone right now and ask the question. Some of our audience have left already, but I have their question in my hand right now. So before I ask on their behalf, maybe I can just open up to the floor first, all right? So anybody has any question, just give a quick introduction about yourself, then you can ask your question. Anybody from the audience? Okay, maybe I can start first, right? So I have one audience. His name is James. James is someone from Singapore, and he is actually operating a hotel industry. So James thinks that in our hotel industry, we usually end up a lot of food wastages, which I think is not sustainable. I myself is a very environmentalist. I recycle a lot personally. I'm trying to convince my boss in terms of green and sustainability. But my boss seems to be a very pragmatic Asian businessman. He felt that to be green and to be sustainable is usually for someone who are very rich, and for businesses is usually for large corporations who can afford to do that. He often told me that we are just a small company. Green and sustainability require a huge upfront investment. Can you help me? How do I convince my boss in terms of going green or sustainable? Anybody who want to answer this question first? Venkat or Michael? Venkat, you want to take the answer?
I think these are, I would not be surprised with these kind of perceptions, because any initiative like this you start, I think there is always a perception of cost and whether I will get the benefit. But what we have seen in many of these initiatives, I am not specifically talking about sustainability alone, because sustainability is an evolving subject and we are already embarked on this as a mandate. But my comment here only will be that, once these new initiatives, you have the larger focus of creating a better tomorrow, offering a value to your customers. Once this becomes the norm and the standard, then we find over a period of time, actually you become better. The efficiency goes up, the productivity goes up, whether it is any standard, whether it is a quality implementation standard, whether it is a ISO, IMS implementation standard. It starts with this mindset, but I think you have to overcome this as long as you have the focus on the larger initiative. I'm sure once this becomes a way of executing and as a norm, you will find that you start getting the benefits. That becomes the default, and I don't think it adds to the cost in the long run. This has been my experience with various new initiatives that have been implemented, and this will be just one more new initiative, in my opinion.
Okay, good answer, Venkat. Michael, you have anything to add?
No, I think Venkat, you brought it to the point. I could just add that there is initiatives also in hotels and hospitality. There are associations and so on, which could be a good source for also business cases of these sustainability initiatives. So there is material, and I think there is good business sense. That is what you said, Venkat. You just need to embark on it. In recycling or using towels more often, whatever. So a lot of things are already happening in this domain.
Okay. Then let me move on to another question. This question was asked by a professor. His name is just Professor Sam, but he didn't wrote like what university is from. He says that sustainability, I think, is more just about green. I think sustainability is about workforce development as well. What do you think in terms of sustainability in the workforce and in the corporate culture? What we can do about it? I think this is quite a vague question, but Michael, maybe you want to answer that? Do you have any comment on that? I think Sam's question is mainly how sustainability applies to workforce development, and I think you mentioned a little bit on that just now.
Mm-hmm. I think I might be just able to speak for Europe, but there is a war for talents, and people sometimes start to not only work for an employer because of the money, they also want to be proud of their employer. Yeah? And so what the company is doing needs to be in line with their personal values, and you can enhance really the retention of employees, the happiness, and by that the productivity, if you care for sustainability, which also has an internal dimension. It's not only about environment, it's also about social practices, it's about how to treat employees, about transparency and so on. So there's a lot of good things coming from sustainability initiatives, also if it comes to the people management in the organization.
Okay, very interesting, Michael. But Venka, I remember last week when I have a quick interview, you talk about something about sustainability that related to like Modern Slavery Act, right? Maybe you want to elaborate a little bit more on that?
No, what I was, in the sense that if you look at some of the UN regulations and, we have some very specific requirements with respect to people, with respect to forced employment. We are very sensitive to this. We are very sensitive to usage of child labor, and we have to get a declaration from the stakeholders or the suppliers that they don't employ any child labor. So there is an element of awareness that needs to be created, and we try to do a bit by discouraging people from these things like slavery and usage of child labor and complying to the larger UN Act. It's an evolving subject, as I mentioned, especially in developing countries like India, but we all have to do a bit to create that awareness and to make them implement these things in their organizations. And we are doing that bit as a part of our developing the supply chain.
Thanks, Venka. As we are speaking, I got another live question from the audience. This is a question to Michael. He says, Michael, well, this might be a bit of challenging question, but Michael, just try your best to answer it. Michael, what is carbon footprint, and how do you measure carbon footprint for a manufacturing company? I think this is quite broad. So, Michael, maybe just give your best to answer it.
Okay, in 10 seconds. Well, carbon footprint are all the emissions which contribute to climate change or global warming, summed up and expressed in the currency of carbon dioxide, which is the most important source for global warming. So having a smaller carbon footprint means being more climate friendly, and it's a physical measure. You can normalize different emissions in terms of their contribution to global warming and express them in one currency, which is the carbon footprint.
Okay, well, that's a good explanation. And I have another next question. This guy is from property development, and I think he's from Malaysia. He is an architect, and he's saying, I think this is also a question for Michael. Venka, feel free to chip in as well. He says that I have been in property development for the past 20 years, and in these few years, people around the world are talking about green buildings or buildings that are eco-friendly. But to our experience, building eco-friendly building or green building costs a lot more in terms of material, and we don't really know how to differentiate ourselves. We often believe that value buying, but we don't really know how to communicate the differentiator of green building, how to communicate the value in terms of customer perspective. So, Michael, maybe you want to take this question first?
Yeah, I give it a try. Creating a building which is green is normally a bit more expensive than creating a building which is not green. Over the life cycle or over the use of a building, the cost, not only the cost, but also the comfort inside a building is heavily dependent on the building quality, and building certification schemes like LEED or BREEAM or the German DGNB are helping to market a green building. So there is some certification, some standards which are evolving. We from Thinkstep do, for instance, a project with the World Bank and with India to try to transform this very high and very expensive certification and green building standards to other countries like India in order to get to a way larger rollout. So there are tools and measures to roll this out. There are tools to market them, and there is a market for it. Otherwise, green building certification would be not booming. And thirdly, there is business rationale and comfort rationale to use and rent green buildings. That would be my answer. And it's
all right.
I think it's
Thanks, Michael. I think that is a very good perspective. Venkat, you have anything to add? I think Venkat, you are from India. Maybe you can share some from your perspective from the local Indian market as well.
Yeah, I think I fully endorse what Michael says, and we have also been part of the green building. Some of the customers for whom we engineer and we set up projects, they are keen to move towards green building because they don't look at it as an added cost, but they have a lot of other intrinsic hidden advantages with respect to their branding, with respect to their own value that they want to showcase to their customers, to the society, to the environment. I think a lot of respect and a lot of other intangible benefits goes with these concepts. So we are seeing an increasing use. And as Michael says, initially, yes, we had few, I would say the knowledge was a bit limited. The certification authorities were few. The process was probably a little more complex, but I think as with time, it's getting harmonized, it's getting much more simpler, and it's easily understandable for people to implement those standards. So once you move towards simplification, I'm sure you will see a lot of people implementing these norms for the betterment of the larger future. So I think I agree that we see a trend of moving more and more towards environmental friendly. It could happen in small steps, but certainly the direction is very clear.
All right, thanks, Venkat. I still have a lot of more questions, but unfortunately we are running out of time already. So for the rest of the audience, this is a webinar from Go Sourcing. So after the event, for those who are registered it, we will send you a recorded version of this webinar. You can ask more questions to our speakers as well, Venkat and Michael from Thinkstep. Their email will be included as well. You can always ask them questions and through our social media channel as well. So if you'd like to hear more from us in the future, just go to our LinkedIn page, linkedin.com/company/GoSourcing. Follow us, or you could also go to our website, gosourcing.com/subscribe, and just subscribe into our newsletter for our future events. With that, I think I would like to give a big thanks again to Mr. Venkat and also Michael Betts. Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for your sharing. And yeah, I hope we will keep in touch for our future events and also some of our future opportunities to work together. All right, Venkat, Michael, thanks again.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you all. It was a
all right,
nice meeting.
Thank you all
Bye.
for participation. Have a good day. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.